Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the weekly Viewpoint, your trusted platform where ideas and insights meet and the week's most pressing issues are dissected, debated, and illuminated. I'm your host, Biniam Getana, as always joined by my colleague, Sintayo Tamrat. And today, together, we'll invite you to stay with us for the next hour as we are going to navigate cross borders of politics, policy, and perspectives. Tonight, we turn our gaze towards two stories shaping Ethiopia's national conversation and indeed its future. We first explore Ethiopia's renewed request and quest for access to the sea, a story not just of geography, but of identity, sovereignty, and destiny. It is a narrative that reaches deep into story and stretches a horizon of hope, rekindled most recently by the Memorandum of Understanding with Somaliland. In the second half of our program, we'll dive into another wave, making regional headlines, Ethiopia's measured but firm response to Egypt's increasingly hostile rhetoric over the Nile and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. These are not mere political squabbles. They are reflections of national pride, survival, and the pursuit of mutual respect in a rapidly shifting region. So, stay with us as we unpack these complex stories with clarity and candor. Once again, you can also follow this conversation on EBC 104.7 FM, the voice of Pan-Africanism. As well, you can also follow our social media platform, www.ebc104.7. And without any further ado, I will be going to the discussion. So, Sintayo, can you possibly let's try the discussion and shed more light on the idea that I've started, speaking of the Ethiopian quest, access to sea outlet, and why these issues continue to resonate deeply in the Ethiopian consciousness?
Well, I think it has been long years now since maybe the secession of Eritrea in 1993 back, that Ethiopians and Ethiopia have been just questing for access to the sea, direct and sovereign access to the sea. And the very reason for that is that it is an existential necessity for Ethiopia and vital for its economic growth, national security, as well as long-term prosperity. So since 1993, that is just after the secession of Eritrea, the country has almost relied entirely, we can say, on Port Djibouti for its import and export, as well as maritime trade. So this has just created some economic vulnerability through high transport and transit costs and dependence on a single outlet, and also to a limited regional leverage. So the Ethiopian government has just started questioning about this, because these things need to be changed because of the socio-economic and political context in the region, as well and beyond, as well as locally. So, by the way, no Ethiopian, except a few members of the TPLF, those senior leaders of the TPLF, the senior combatants, who are just happy in the secession of Eritrea from Ethiopia, and that just devoid of Ethiopia and Ethiopians from seaport, leading the country to incur about 2 billion USD annually for its importations and transit costs. So this has just posed several economic challenges to Ethiopia, and this amount could also be returned to some other development aspects. Not only this, we will just try to see the projections of possible challenges that Ethiopia may face if the things continue this way, if Ethiopia's access to the Red Sea or access to the sea, access to the port and naval base is not secured, things may prolong. So we'll just try to see those points. So a country that throughout history had two ports and a naval base along the Red Sea. Now, as you see, no naval base across the long sea, and the country is almost just trying to pay the costs because it once lost that. And after 3 decades, Ethiopia and Ethiopians are questing for access to the sea, and the government of Ethiopia made this quest official in 2023. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed frames maritime access as essential to sustain the needs of Ethiopia's rapidly growing population, rapidly growing economy, and to ensure the country's strategic autonomy within the Horn of Africa region. The Ethiopian government maintains that secure sea access is not an act of aggression, but a strategic and developmental imperative aimed at regional cooperation and mutual benefit. So the initiatives such as rebuilding a naval force and negotiating access through partnerships, most notably the 2024 Memorandum of Understanding with Somaliland, reflects Addis Abeba's effort to protect its economical interests, diversify its trade routes, and reclaim a balanced role in Red Sea and global affairs, and contribute to regional peace as well. In essence, Ethiopia views its quest for sea access as part of a broader strategy to overcome the economic and geopolitical limitations of landlocked status, enhance regional integration, and restore a sense of national continuity and sovereignty lost since 1993. Ethiopia also argues that gaining direct access to a sea also an economic and strategic necessity vital to sustaining its rapid development and ensuring national and regional stability. You know that Ethiopia is just fighting terrorism across the region, and just something that you do on land and on air may not be just enough. So combating terrorism there, for example, piracy, there being on the sea is also something important for Ethiopia, and it is also a must for regional peace and stability. So Ethiopia wants just to advance its peace and security efforts across the sea, also going to the sea. So for this, direct access to the sea is quite essential. I mean, other. So Ethiopia's landlocked status has imposed severe limitations, high transport and logistics costs, as I mentioned, and dependence on neighboring ports, vulnerability to shifting transit policies, and reduced competitiveness, that is just as the global and regional competitiveness when it comes to trade and international markets. So these challenges have also hampered trade, investment, and economic diversification, as well as the regional peace and stability efforts. So by securing access to a seaport and establishing a naval presence through peaceful cooperation, Ethiopia aims to diversify trade routes, reduce shipping costs, and strengthen its integration into the global market, as well as maintain peace and security across the region. By the way, Ethiopia's access to the sea could also mean that having a naval base could also mean that Ethiopia is just contributing to the global peace and security. Piracy, as you see, is just witnessing a great deal of instability in the global trade, in the international trade route. There have been just some disruptions, and this disruption can also be somehow lessened due to this presence, Ethiopia's presence. In history, we know that Ethiopia was there just safeguarding the coastline across the Red Sea. Then it is just that, and maybe beyond, because the Ethiopian government has built a naval army and a institute that is just training and also just providing for the country's maritime services that the country has been just offering for several years now. So with this together with having a naval base at the coastal line could be really a big safeguard, not only to region, not only for Ethiopian national interest in peace and security, but also just contributing to the global peace and security across the sea.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned to the weekly Viewpoint, your trusted platform where ideas meet insight and the week's most pressing issues are dissected, debated and illuminated. Once again, I'm your host, Biniam Getana, joined by my co-host, Sintayo Tamrat. We are expounding on the very important pointers, and just to remind you a few pointers, this program is coming to you from EBC World, your reliable source of Pan-African ideas. As we sail through the program, let me just remind you again the pointers, as you have talked about, the very important ideas of becoming a landlocked country and the kind of disadvantage we lose. So in this regard, what are some of the constraints faced by Ethiopia if it is to stay landlocked?
Well, as to me, Ethiopia will basically just endure and will endure four major constraints or challenges. These are just the economic and trade constraints, geopolitical and strategic constraints, security and military constraints, as well as psychological and developmental constraints. And if we just try to see one by one each one of these, for the first one is just the economic and trade challenges Ethiopia will face or continue to face. That is just the reduced trade volume. As we see, landlocked countries on average engage in about 30% less trade than coastal nations.
Indeed.
So it means that, for example, if the Ethiopian trade volume, maybe if the export trade volume is 100 billion USD, now it will be less by 30%, meaning just it lowers by 70%. You see, the potential is 100 billion USD, but due to lack of access to the sea, that's the lost one, Ethiopia will also reduce its export trade by 30% or 30 billion in our example. So this together with the changing nature of global tariff, the WTO requirements, what the World Trade Organization requirement is, etc., will affect Ethiopia's GDP. Then slower economic growth is also Ethiopia, the challenge Ethiopia is going to experience if the access to the sea is denied. So their GDP grows. When we see the countries which do not have access to the sea or landlocked countries, their GDP growth is approximately 1.5% lower due to limited access to the sea. Higher transportation and logistics costs depending on transit countries. Ethiopia it just relies on Djibouti for it is 80 to 90% of external trade. So this leads to Ethiopia or these countries like Ethiopia to high transport expenses and port fees. Ethiopia, for example, pays 2 billion USD annually for Djibouti for port service. Then the next one is infrastructure and custom inefficiencies. Lengthy transit time, for example, it may take approximately 50 days to import your goods to the country. So it stays there some 50 days on Port Djibouti. So this incurs huge cost for Ethiopia. So together with poor port capacity, inconsistent customs practices, and port congestion increase logistics and import costs for countries like Ethiopia. So this must be considered, and if actions are not taken today, the country will incur costs related with this one, and limited port diversification. Dependent on a single outlet creates economic vulnerability and expose the country to external shocks and political instability in the transit state.
Very good.
For example, 130 million Ethiopians you can just consider if a port access, if Ethiopia does not have direct and sovereign access to the port or the Red Sea, you can say, because our proximity is to the Red Sea,
sure.
Basically. So what will be the fate of 130 million Ethiopians? For example, currently we witness the power alignment globally and how these powers are interacting. So these superpowers are again present across or near to Port Djibouti. Ethiopia does have only this port for its 80 to 90% of import-export trade. Then what if these countries interact, just go on armed interaction? So what will be the fate of 130 million Ethiopians?
Interesting.
Because we don't have just, if you go to, for example, Port Sudan, you cannot access that easily, because that route is also just in conflict zone. So, and the other way, you have just some sort of piracy. So the safest way for us is the Red Sea, if things happen this way. So in order just to safeguard the peace, security, and well-being of your people, as a government, you need just to interact actively, and I think soon to answer these points.
I wish you can also elaborate the factors in connection with geopolitical strategy constraints, and as well as the security and military constraints. I hope you have more points on that.
Yeah, sure. And the second point is geopolitical and strategic challenges. Ethiopia has been facing this for the last 30 decades or more, because once it is Massawa and Assab ports were taken, along with the cessation of Eritrea. So reduced and strategic autonomy is what you will have, what you will continue to have, because you are just a landlocked country. So landlocked countries like Ethiopia are dependent on the maritime strategies of neighboring coastal countries. So you have just to align your strategies in this regard with countries like Djibouti, Eritrea, Sudan, also who does have the access, the direct and sovereign access. But you have to revert this. You had access to the Red Sea with 2 ports and a naval port, a naval base. So this is your natural right. So you need just to reclaim that. You need to reaccess that and gain the geopolitical and strategic momentum. Another point is marginalization in regional geopolitics. If Ethiopia does have that, so, the peace and security contribution you will have in the region will be more than that, what you have been doing. Then the power this country will have will increase if it accesses a naval base and if it is just contributing to the peace and security of the region, as well as the regional trade route there. Another important point is just the exposure to regional rivalries. A reliance on transit routes often expose landlocked countries like Ethiopia to external political pressures and alignments that may not serve their national interests. So sometimes you may just be forced to align to any other powers without your national interest, because you don't have just access to the sea. And the third point is security and military constraints. One or another way, I think I have just delved on that. You have just restricted military maneuvering or projection, because you don't have that. Ethiopia has been just silent about its naval base, or
the naval base,
it's naval base, because it doesn't have the access to that. And it hasn't had that access for over 30 years. And now, before Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has just initiated that, and formalized that quest of Ethiopians to have that. Then you also have just limited response to emerging threats. Emerging threats like piracy.
Sure.
Piracy has a number of ways. So you have just to have a kind of stable, withstanding, and robust military at the sea to interact with or just to deter terrorism emanating from or just that is linked to piracy. And another important point is that most of the time arms are smuggled here not through air transport, land and sea transport. So you have just to control the sea in order to control the terrorism, in order to control your national interests, to maintain your national interests, you have just to control the sea. So Ethiopia needs to have that. If Ethiopia is to truly, effectively, efficiently, and successfully go or proceed with its anti-terrorism efforts, whether it is in Somaliland, here at homeland, or anywhere else, the country needs to have some sort of interference on the sea, and there a naval base and the port are really quite necessary to do that jobs.
And I think you've really expounded on critical points, and that's also what Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has been saying during the speech he delivered on the televised speech. And from the very onset, several diplomatic activities have been going on, and Ethiopia has been requesting this to happen, keeping the international law and also with a very productive and diplomatic manner. And we can also talk about a little bit the African Free Trade Continental Area. It's also another important point, because as Ethiopia requests, this is at the end of the day, as we talk about connecting African continent through trades and marketing and other important issues, such a thing can play a very important role. Maybe let me give you a second to expound on that.
Yeah, for example, countries like Djibouti, because they do have just access to the sea, are just using that. They have been trying to easily open access to their port, access to their markets, you see. But you don't have that, and since you are landlocked, you have just to control many things. When trade, just transnational trade comes, it is just between borders and across borders, and so many countries come to your country and your products also go there. But countries like Djibouti have, for example, worked a lot on that, and it is easy just to join the African Continental Free Trade Area and to implement that soon, despite their own local challenges. So if Ethiopia does have that, we may have just two ports, okay? One, the leased one, and one ours. So, and maybe also another access through peaceful means. I don't know where it can be. So that can facilitate, it adds. No, that cannot be just a denominator for the African Continental Free Trade Area, but that contributes as well.
Exactly. And Sintayo, thank you so much. You really nailed the point. Ladies and gentlemen, you're still tuned to the weekly Viewpoint, where the week's most pressing issues are dissected and illuminated, as I'm joined by my colleague Sintayo Tamrat. And once again, I'm Binyam Getana. You can follow this conversation on EBC 104.7, the voice of Pan-Africanism, and also you can follow us on our social media platform, www.abc104.7, and text us on our text line 801 as we delve into another segment. You can also follow us on EBC Radio once again. And this program is coming to you as well from EBC Wallet, your reliable source of Pan-African's idea. Now, moving to the second half of the program, let's turn our attention to Ethiopia's response to the ceaseless attempts towards a journey toward this prosperity. In this regard, Ethiopia's rise is a reality that cannot be reserved despite all the machinations, proxy shenanigans, and ill-conceived attempt of its adversary. Ethiopia said point blank that Egypt's colonial era mindset has led to the pursuit of a failed and misguided policy, undermining Ethiopia's instead of nurturing collaboration. Ethiopia, which is the source of 85% of the Nile River and the origin of the mighty Abai River, is on the path to prosperity. The statement added and underlining that Ethiopia will not be pressured or cowed into abandoning its right to utilize the Nile to meet its water needs. Now, having this in mind, Sentayo, let's now see how these points are very important, and I want you to enlighten on this point.
Yeah. You have just mentioned a very, what can I say, hard issue.
Yeah.
It is just one of the agendas of the Ethiopian government. In fact, it is just the agenda for the Egyptian government as well. But the point here is that Egyptian President El-Sisi raised the issue during a moment which does not fit this one. It was a water week, in fact, but the situation brought that water week platform brought together expertise from the international community as well as African countries and so on. It is just that context President Al-Sisi tried to leverage with some machinations, with some unlawful and also ungrounded facts. What he has been saying for the last many statements regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is that unilateral action. That is what he wanted just to give to those expertise and maybe leaders of international institutions or regional institutions related to water. So these are just the 2 points. One has been just trying to continue that ungrounded allegations. Two, he was just trying to exploit that situation, the water forum, you see? So it is just based on that allegation. Ethiopian government, I think that is the Ministry of Water and Energy.
Exactly.
Yeah, released a press statement.
Yeah, what was those identified points?
Yeah, one of the identified points is Egypt's escalating hostility. What Egypt reflected that day with that statement, El-Sisi's statement, was escalating hostility with Ethiopia. Egypt has just intensified its aggressive rhetoric against Ethiopia regarding the Abai River and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, using regional platforms to promote its unlawful hegemonic claims over the Nile waters. Egypt historically does not want, it has never wanted any country sea rising up. That is what it has been just doing to Ethiopia, particularly since the start of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Egypt has been just trying any means to disrupt that, to dismantle the country. One way is just dismantling the country, and it has been doing that. For example, for the last 15 years, I've been just actively involved in information related with Egyptian actions against the Grand Renaissance Dam, the cooperationists, the diplomatic successionists, and so on. I've been just closely following such issues. And with this, what I also try to see is that how Egyptian government has been just trying to dismantle the regional cooperation. It has been disrupting that.
Sure.
For example, the Nile Basin Cooperative
Agreement.
Has been just since last October. It has come to effect. Now, it is just a legal document. A law that binds the cooperation of the riparian countries.
Sure.
But with that will come, by mid-October, the countries were expecting to bring into effect the Nile River Commission. They were to meet in Entebbe by mid-October. But due to Egypt's intervention, that was disrupted. Till now, they haven't made.
You see? Just because of
Two, since the inception of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the Egyptian government was working hard. Even their national media outlets were propagating this.
Yeah.
They were just trying to do everything to topple down the EPRDF government.
Oh, yeah.
And they were arming two factions, the OLF, and the OLF which based in Egypt as well, and the one which was in Eritrea. You see? So the one of the opposition party leaders was there in Eritrea, and he said that he received some money and also support, other forms of support from the Egyptian government. Egypt did not deny that.
Yeah, they've been doing it, actually.
Yeah, they have been doing the same till today.
Yeah.
So that is how Egypt has been doing in Sudan as well. For example, there have been just for a century a rhythmic coup in Sudan. Since I mean, just not for a century, but since it liberated itself from Egyptian occupation. You see, there have been rhythmic coup.
Yeah.
Every 10 years or so.
There was.
Yeah. So, and Egypt was also has been just trying to take out the resources of Sudan, and it has displaced the Sudanese people, taking some huge territory from North Sudan. You see? So Egypt has been just trying this and many other ways to destabilize the region.
Wait.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
Does it really take a genius just to understand the fact behind denying your neighbors not to use their God-given water resources and just trying to give them some sort of water in a measured quantity?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it means with press release the Ethiopian government said, and even the Egyptian government said. The Ethiopian government, in fact, just quoted that one, said by LCC.
Sure.
And what LCC said was, the Egyptian government has been just digging some and also trying to help them use rainwater. What is a help with rainwater systems mean?
I see.
Too outdated.
It is.
You see? So what does it mean? Just denying the Nile River, don't take the Nile River, but use the rainwater. And the rainwater is used this way. What does it mean? You see? So Egypt is always trying to deprive people of the region, the entire region, from their natural right not to use their God-given water resources. In our case, Abai. In the other case, the Nile.
Sure. In connection with the misinterpretation of solidarity and what Egypt's and the Ethiopian government replied, and I think you can also tell us more about this one and why Egypt has been also in this regard trying to dismantle or see the underdevelopment of this region, particularly when it comes to Ethiopia. It has always been against, but surprisingly, Ethiopia from the very onset has been using diplomatic approaches, a win-win and collaborative approach, and as it could help other neighboring countries as well. But why is it becoming a bottleneck again?
Yeah, it's because of the hydro-hegemony. When I say hydro-hegemony, Egypt tries to control the entire water from origin to its final destination, that is the Mediterranean, you see? So from origin, as I told you, just giving or destroying some sort of bread, it's only an attempt. I know that regional countries don't accept that. And Egypt is just trying to control that and has been just controlled, for example, controlling the Nile River since 1902. Since 1902, there are just 3 key agreements. The first agreement is Ethiopia signed that agreement, in fact. But as Ethiopia signed that agreement, the agreement says Ethiopia will not stop. You see, it's not just interrupting or just dwindling the flow of the river. Ethiopia won't stop the flow or block. You see, that's and Ethiopia has never said that. Ethiopia is never intend to do that. Downstream countries. We have the Sudanese people. We have the Egyptian people. Though the governments may not just have
come to terms,
smooth relation, the people of Ethiopia and the people of Sudan, the people of Egypt have something to share, common culture,
Sure.
you see, common history. So the Ethiopian government does not do that. It did not do that, will not do the same. So this is just one of the agreements. Maybe just if you consider that a trilateral agreement, that could be mentioned. Another
Sure.
agreement is the 1929 agreement. So 1929 agreement just offers Egypt the veto power on the Nile River. You see, some 55 billion cubic meters of water, the annual flow of the Nile River is just allotted to Egypt. Sudan uses 18 point something water. The rest is left for evaporation.
Sure.
With Ethiopia and other upper riparian countries, no right to use the water.
Yeah.
The 1929 agreement allows Egypt just to deter or prevent any upstream project. Any upstream project, if you want just to construct dam, you have just to consult Egypt.
Yeah.
This is what is meant by historic agreement, an agreement of colonial era that that did not include Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda,
Sure.
Tanzania, Eritrea, any other riparian country.
That also disregards international law.
Even the 1929 agreement disregarded Sudan itself.
Sure.
You see? So it is in the 1959 agreement that 18% was just allotted.
Yeah.
The 1929 agreement was just made between the then colonial master of Egypt, that is Britain, Great Britain.
Yeah.
So it is just between Great Britain and Great Britain that was just signed. You can say the 1929 agreement.
Sure.
You see? It's not even between Egypt and Great Britain.
Yeah.
Because the master was Britain, so it is a Britain-led thing.
Exactly.
Even during the occupation of Italia to Ethiopia, they just agreed. You see, the Italian government and the British government agreed on that agreement.
Yeah.
So the agreement even did not include the Egyptian government and the Egyptian people.
Yeah.
The agreement was signed between two colonial masters.
Exactly.
You see? So it is just this kind of agreement that Egypt tries to make it African. Egypt is trying to make it a kind of local agreement and trilateral agreement.
Yeah.
Ethiopia did not know, does not know any about this agreement, you see?
Yeah. What has been Ethiopia's position, and as well as Egypt's obstructions, and you can also mention past to the resolutions.
Sorry.
I'm sticking with the statement released by the Water and Energy Minister. There has been, the Ethiopia's position has been embedded there.
Yeah, Ethiopian position is always the same. To have a fair, equitable, and with no significant harm kind of collaboration on the projects on Abai, like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been realized. It is based on these premises, principles, that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been realized.
Based on fairness and equitable.
Fairness, equitable use or utilization of the Nile River. But as you just do some development work, you don't have just to inflict a certain significant harm to downstream countries. This is it. So Ethiopia exerts its sovereign right to use the Nile for development and refuses to be pressured into submission. The article, the statement goes already. So it contributes 85% of the Nile's flow through the Abai or Blue Nile, and seeks cooperation based on fairness and equality. This is just what the statement read.
Yeah.
And Egypt's obstructionism, the statement has room for that as well. And Cairo has consistently negotiated in bad faith, both during GERD talks and the broader Nile Basin Cooperative Framework negotiations, while engaging in illegal out of basin water diversions and manipulative tactics.
Oh, yeah.
For example, Egypt is trying, as I told you, trying to control the source and also the end.
Yeah.
Not only just that is coming to its territories. For example, Egypt is just trying to take the water across a different route than the natural route. That very much dwindles, according to experts, the volume of the water that flows. You see? In a very desert area, Egypt is trying to take the water to do some agricultural thing, and also trying to divert the water through pipe to some Arab countries. You see? So it is just with such a spirit, Egypt is just trying to say that the unilateral action is just trying to, or it inflicts some sort of harm to the flow water stream. I don't want just to say the word water share, because as we have seen, the water share with the two agreements is never fail.
Exactly.
You see? So it is just trying to say, the upstream countries, particularly Ethiopia, is just trying to inflict some sort of harm to the flow of the water with disregard.
Having that in mind, what has been Ethiopia's past two resolutions in enhancing regional cooperation? In the meantime, the government commitment, to peace, actually.
Okay, so Ethiopia really emphasizes the Nile disputes can only be resolved through direct engagement, mutual respect, and adherence to the principles of equitable utilization, not through treaties, propaganda, or coercion. You see, this is basically what is reflected during before just the establishment of the Nile Basin Initiative. You see, it has come a long-term dialogue, and also before they signed Declaration of Principles in Khartoum back 2015, Ethiopia has insisted the same.
Sure.
You see, mutual respect, cooperation, no significant harm. Basically, this is just a fundamental international law and principle, equitable and fair utilization of the transboundary rivers. This has been stipulated in the articles. What I've just mentioned have been stipulated in the articles, in some of the articles in the DOP, Declaration of Principles document the three countries have signed. So Ethiopia abides by that, and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been realized with that. By the way, it is when the very day that Egypt signed this agreement that it lost the hydro hegemony, because it allows Ethiopia to do any sort of development project on the Abai River. One, two, very important. With realization of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, now the way has been freed. The hydro hegemony has become balanced, because other countries can also just use Ethiopia's model, Ethiopia's way, to construct their hydropower, to do some kind of irrigation. You see? So development is inevitable for the next 3 years. You can see huge development, and because if these countries do have their own hydro dams, if they can generate enough amount of power, that adds significantly to their GDP. Economic growth is also realized through industrialization, which means many of these countries will have their industries engaging more people, or bringing more people, more productive power to these industries, meaning the employment rate is reduced. Really,
on top of that, Ethiopia's government stand diplomatically from the very beginning has always been, aligning with Agenda 2063, because this, completion of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam will benefit other riparian countries, and that has been a strong and staunch stance of the Ethiopian government. And I think going forward, you can also wrap up the points in a few words as we are getting closer to the end of the programs entire.
Okay. Well, regarding this, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, they are just included in the Agenda 2063 of Africa. So for Africa, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is one of the mega projects, the flagship projects. You know? So it means that power or energy transformation is a must for Africa.
True.
And energy transformation cannot be realized without the cooperation of these countries, riparian countries, you see? That is why Ethiopia is just trying to always rely on peaceful means, on dialogue, negotiations. 14 years negotiation to build a single dam is not a simple thing.
Exactly.
It just requires from Ethiopia or from any country like Ethiopia big effort, patience as well.
And its diplomacy also with neighboring countries is something that we have to bear in mind, because Ethiopia has had a friendly and diplomatic relationship with, and after the completion of this Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the energy is also another pivotal addition for Ethiopia that at the end of the day
strengthens. By the way, if you just say some diplomatic means, we in fact must have just mentioned that earlier when we talk about the access to the sea.
Exactly. You
know how Ethiopia just tried to manage the issue with the Somalia because of the agreement, the memorandum of understanding that it signed to secure an access to the sea with Somaliland. You see? So it just secured peaceful, maintained peaceful kind of status with Somalia because of that. But in that as well, the role of Egyptian was big, just to create rifts, you see. So Ethiopia has been just trying to do the same. A country that has been just sacrificing a lot. Thousands of Ethiopians might have just died in Somalia because of for the security and peace of the Somali people.
Sure.
Ethiopia is continuing the same. Huge loss, logistics and money. You see, the country is spending a lot. It is a big, maybe just the biggest investment in the entire history of Africa that Ethiopia is doing in Somalia. Giving people to die there for the safety and peace of Somali people is not a simple thing that you have just to see. You don't have this to take it for granted.
Yeah, maybe let me give you 1 minute to summarize all points that has been hammered, but particularly with the third point, the second point that we are talking about right now. How should Ethiopia continue strengthening its efforts in maintaining this?
Ethiopia has always pursued some sort of collaborative efforts. Diplomatic efforts, peaceful efforts. Ethiopia always aspires to create some sort of regional integration. Ethiopia always tries to bring some sort of development together. Causing development is a kind of mutual things that you do. If you cannot just develop alone. This is just the belief of the Ethiopian government. You can develop together. Before a kind of fulfilling the energy needs here, Ethiopia has been just exporting power for neighboring countries. That is a kind of mutual respect, that's a kind of cooperation, that is a kind of developing or prospering together. It is from this spirit that Ethiopia is just trying to do. Another important point, if you have to mention, is about the philosophy of Medemer.
Exactly.
Medemer is a kind of philosophy that works also for other nations. Since, as I told you, Ethiopia firmly believes that prosperity comes together. You cannot prosper alone, you see? So, for example, if the conflict in Sudan will will spiral out of control and comes to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It also just takes some effort of development.
Exactly.
So you spend there.
Yeah.
So Ethiopia is always, consistently trying its best to maintain Sudan peaceful.
Yeah.
Trying to negotiate. For example, I know that twice some warring parties have been just here in Ethiopia and just trying to negotiate.
That's interesting.
So
we
Ethiopia
talk
is just
about
trying.
the Agenda 23, the Africa we want at the end of the day, as Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed also described it in his book, we become developed when we become, one and the same. And Ethiopia never shows any, interest of starting war, but believe in cooperation.
Yeah.
So, Sintayo, I wish we continued the ball rolling, but time is always against us. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Viewpoint, our weekly program dedicated to this timely point, and the ideas that have been raised have been so much important. I am sure that you guys have enjoyed, as we have brought you a very critical points. We hope this discussion has helped shed more meaningful lights on this complex and pressing matters. And I have been your host, Biniam Getana, joined by my thoughtful colleague and co-host, Sintayo Tamrat. Thank you for your time. Until we see you another time with another segment. Enjoy the rest of the program from EBC Wallet, the voice of Pan-Africanism, and goodbye.